Well, welcome. I'm so glad that you're joining me today. My name is Kimberly. I am with Belmont Village in the Oak Park location, and I am here to talk about your amazing aging body. And so I wonder, did you wake up this morning and say, I have an amazing aging body? Maybe not, maybe you did. No worries either way. We all wake up every day feeling a little bit different. And our bodies change as we go through our life. And that's absolutely normal. And so I'm going to talk today a little bit about that and keeping ourselves healthy throughout the process. So to start with, I'd love to share this quote. Just as a reminder, right, that caring for myself is not self-indulgence, it's self-preservation. And that's so important because as we continue to maybe care for others, as we maybe continue to find ourselves in different situations in life, it's important that we continue to care for ourselves, just because not only for our own well-being, but for the sake of caring for others too. We always say in yoga that you can't pour from an empty cup. And so we need to keep our cup filled in order to take care of others as well. So things we'll cover today. First off, just understanding the normal changes in the physical body and what matters most for longevity. We'll also talk about normal changes in the brain and how to keep the brain healthy. We'll talk about fueling the lifestyle that you want. And so in thinking about what is it that you want to do and continue to do. We'll discuss some other things that matter, and I will talk along the way about some simple steps to help you get on the right path. All right. So we know that aging is inevitable, but we're finding that decline is not necessarily so. Yoko Morishita is a 77-year-old Japanese ballet dancer, prima ballerina. She is still performing and performing in major roles in Japan, which is so exciting. And there's so many examples of things like that. I was watching a video the other day of a woman in her, I think it was her late 80s, who is still lifting heavy weights and competing in that. I saw another video of a man also in his mid 80s who is biking and is biking at like 21 miles an hour, which is for me, I'm a biker as well, and I know that that's a pretty good speed. So want to show that yes, while the aging process in our bodies is a known, decline is definitely not. So let's get physical. Don't you love Olivia Newton-John? I just love her. She's such a great person and was a great example. All right, so changes in our bodily landscape. Yes, the terrain is different than it was when we were younger, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Yes, like I said, the body continues to change. So what are some of those examples? Well, we see muscular changes. Our lean mass, our muscle mass, does gradually decline throughout time. We hit that peak in our 20s, and then it starts to our late 20s, and then it starts to decline a little bit, and that's just normal, okay? And so we see that decline if we don't do anything about it. Also, bone density. we are going to lose some bone density over time, right? We hear about fractures being a little bit easier to get. We want to be careful. That's why there's some fear of falls. And it's because of the fact that our density is declining. And again, that's just normal stuff if we're not doing anything about it. Our blood pressure changes. Why? Well, our vessels start to stiffen as we get older. Again, that's the natural progression if we're not doing anything about it. And so when our blood vessels stiffen, our heart stiffens and shrinks, it has to work a lot harder to get that blood pumping through our body. And so it has to work a little bit harder. And so therefore our blood pressure often rises just for that simple fact that we're trying to accommodate those changes in the body. Hydration also changes. Our thirst signals weaken. We don't really notice that we're thirsty as much as we used to. And so oftentimes we become dehydrated a little bit faster or unbeknownst to ourselves, right? We get through the day and we're like, man, I'm just really dehydrated. Or we find that we're going through procedures and we're highly dehydrated because of that. Finally, collagen is another common effect. We, especially in the more surface area of appearance, we worry about the collagen, right? The elasticity in our skin. We think about it with our wrinkles and such as that. That's pretty typical. But collagen is also affects our joints too. So just some general things that we often see as a part of the natural aging process. So what's important as we age? Well, Stanford, Georgetown University, Harvard, Stanford, all sorts of universities and research institutes are really starting to focus on longevity. We're hearing that term a lot more. We're hearing the terms not just lifespan, but health span. It's not just how long we're living, but how we're living and living healthily. So we are starting to see more and more research findings about what to do to help us have a better health span and create a longer life for ourselves and better quality of life. And so things that we can do according to a lot of this research, is that we can have an active role in remaining healthy and protecting our own bodies. So it's just a simple example is there was a study, it was kind of focusing on how the body was declining. But one of the things that we noticed from that study was that over half of the people who were over 65, the study was for those folks over 65, but over half of them had gained strength throughout this study. And so it does happen, it can happen, we can make that happen. So the importance of strength, right? Strength is a really important marker for functional independence, for our longevity, things like grip strength, and just basic muscle strength, especially in those bigger muscle groups, right? In our legs, in our core, in our arms. It's very, very important to maintain that muscle strength and even start to gain or work a little bit harder on that aspect of it so that as we continue to age, we maintain our strength. Like I said a few slides back, our muscles, our mass is declining just as a natural progression of age. But what we can do about that is to create some strength training in our practice, doing some things in our daily lives that help to keep our strength up, if you will. Another thing to look at is flexibility. And I'm not saying you've got to be able to put your foot over your head. Heavens, I teach yoga and I don't make my students do that either. And so for me, the flexibility aspect is really more about mobility and range of motion. for a simple aspect of, if you can only lift your arm this high, well, it's going to be hard to reach up higher. And so unless we're constantly moving our bodies so that it does increase that or maintain that range of motion, we are going to lose it, right? It is literally a move it or lose it, use it or lose it situation. And so we want to maintain that range of motion, our mobility. Mobility is strength through that range of motion. So flexibility and mobility is very important as we continue on in our lives. And then finally, that cardio strength. And I'm not saying that you've got to be able to go run or do aerobics 6 times a week. That's not at all the case. What's important, though, is remember I mentioned that our vessels and our heart, it gets a little stiffer and has to work harder as a result. However, if we are maintaining our cardiovascular health, though that stiffening can't quite happen as much, right? Because we're using those vessels, we're using our heart. And so that has to remain a little more flexible or a little more plastic, if you will, or plasticity, so that the vessels can move, the heart can pump the blood, and it will be able to pump more blood, which is helpful. When you can pump more blood, you don't have to work as hard, right? So we want to keep the heart efficient and our vessels efficient as well. So those are some, 3 of the important things that we need to focus on as we continue to age. So I thought I would provide, just a few examples of some strength exercises or some things that you can do. And again, not saying you've got to go from 0 to 60 minutes every day. It's just simple things. Spending 5 minutes a day or 10 minutes a day, doing some things that you wouldn't normally do, just to, again, increase that strength for your body. So things like standing up. And you say, well, I'm here, I'm going to stand up anyways. But if you're sitting right now in a chair that has some arms, when you stand up, are you using your arms to push yourself up? Or are you using your core and your leg strength to just simply stand up? And so that's one thing that you might want to consider. If you are sitting often, instead of using those arms on the chair, try to not use them and just stand up on your own using some core and some leg strength. So that's a real easy one. And if that's something that you like to do, certainly other things like squats would be something that you can add on. And so, just a simple squat, right? We stand up and we start to squat a little bit, right? And just a little bit of up and down, and that's going to help to build that quad strength, your hip strength, your glutes as well. Such a great thing. Another, looking at the upper body, are push-ups. And again, I'm not saying that you need to get down and you need to be good and flat and maybe even do a one-handed push-up. Heavens no. A lot of push-ups are started on a wall. And so if you have your hands against a wall, you just sort of lean into it, right? Let your body lean and then push the wall away. And we start there. And when that becomes easy, then maybe you take your hands down and you put them on the counter or the kitchen table, something stable, of course, but you start to do it with a little bit more body weight and you work your way there. Eventually, then you get a little bit lower until you can get to the ground. And when you do get to the ground, I would suggest maybe going on your knees, right? You can easily get on your knees, bring those hands out and do a push-up that way and still build up that strength, that arm strength, that upper body strength. Planks also are some great things too, to help maintain that upper body strength. The other thing that I really like in all aspects, lower body, upper body, are things like resistance bands. And so I have, yes, I think you can see. So I have some resistance bands. They're like different tenseness of them. Like this one's pretty easy. I've got a red one here. like I'm pulling a rabbit out of my hat, right? I have a red one. It's a little bit more tense, a little tougher to stretch. But what's cool about these is that I can put them anywhere. I can stand on it, right? If I loop it like this and put my foot on the bottom, I can do some nice pulls, right? With some nice curls. That's an easy one. I can pull it out and in. I can reach my arm up over my head with those bands as well. So lots of options, and they're cheap. You can get a nice set of bands on Amazon for like 20 bucks. And they're easy, they go anywhere. You can hook them onto a door or wrap it around something that's really nice and sturdy and use that. But I love resistance bands. Those are really great options to build up that strength. And so that's another option. Another area we always want to focus on is our core. And a lot of people think of core as just the belly side, but our core wraps all the way around our torso. So we have core muscles along the sides. Our back is part of our core as well. So maintaining some core strength. And what are some examples of that? Honestly, even just some side stretches is going to help build some core strength. Sitting in a chair, maybe lifting one knee up and then the other. Maybe you do both as if, and then starting to pick up the pace like a jump rope, right? And so that might be something that you can do. There's other samples as well. You can always reach out to me after watching this if you need some other examples. Happy to help you with that. Personally, as a yoga instructor, I do love yoga. There's so many benefits of yoga, not only in the balance side of things, but there's a lot of strength that you build with yoga, a lot of mindfulness too, and breath work that's so great. Tai Chi also, it gives you that great mindfulness practice. And neither of these is going to be a heavy impact. You can build strength. They meet you where you're at. And there's always modifications available. And, just simple walking is so fabulous, especially if you can get outside and do it, right? Today is a beautiful day. The sky is blue. It's not too hot. It's not too cold. It's really, really beautiful outside today. And so getting outside and hearing the birds, and we live in this great area, the Chicagoland area, the Midwest, where we get our 4 seasons, yes? And so you can get out and you can smell when it's fall. You can smell the spring, the dirt, right? The worms after it rains. So there's such great benefits of being outside and, mentally as well as physically. So getting out for a walk. We find that walking right after a meal helps us to digest our meals. So that's another benefit. Lots of times there's like several benefits to just one thing. Finally, love swimming, right? Swimming, those aquafit classes. Why? Again, because there's not much impact there, right? It's not like running where you feel the impact on your joints. With swimming and water, you're not going to feel that as much. You can still definitely build some strength, build some core strength. Swimming, there's lots of research on swimming and how it's good for the brain as well, because it has to think differently. The body is different in the water than it is on land, and perception and such it goes a long way. So love those different examples. And I'm sure there's others too. Maybe you have some that you enjoy. I'm not saying you have to change them, but here's some other examples of things that you can do. Stretching. So we talked about flexibility. So just reminding you that when you do stretches and really any movement in general, you want to think about moving forward and back. You want to think about going side to side, and you want to think about that spinal twist, right? Can you twist and look behind you, or is that tough? And so thinking about all of those directions of movement is really important. There are things like static stretches where we hold the posture for, I would say, a good 20 seconds or more. 20 seconds is what we're finding gives the body that opportunity to sort of relax into that posture and allow the muscles to release a little bit more. Certainly, when you are stretching, you want to make sure that you're breathing. Interestingly enough, the exhale is sort of a cue, if you will, to the body that it's okay, right? It like allows the body to relax. A lot of times we get really tense and tight into our stretches. We really want to try really hard, but actually what we want to do is relax into those stretches. And that's what's going to help us get the most benefit out of it. An active stretch would be maybe a side to side where you're moving and stretching, right? A dynamic stretch starts to get into more complex movements. Maybe it's a stretch and a balance all together. So maybe one example of that, if I may, would be if you were standing and you were to lift your leg up behind you, lower yourself down and come back up again. So by doing that, you're stretching that hamstring, the back of the leg. There's also a lot of mobility and functional movement in that, as well as a lot of balance too. So it sort of progresses as you go. Certainly, working on those different aspects of flexibility is going to help that range of motion. And if you can increase your range of motion, then build strength throughout that range of motion, you're onto something. All right, moving on. It's all in your head. All right, let's talk about brain health. So again, just like the physical body, our brains change too, right? Our mental capacity changes as we get older. So things like the processing speed, it's going to slow down a little bit. It just takes us a little bit longer to think of something, and that's okay. Those tip of the tongue moments, right? Oh, what was that name? Right? Moments like that, temporarily forgetting things. That's again very, very normal. What we find is that prefrontal cortex area of the brain where there's planning and decision making, as well as the hippocampus. That's where the memory is stored. That's where we see the most age-related change. And so again, those are totally normal. Also, note that last one, right? Blood flow to the brain decreases gradually. Why, right? Remember we talked about the vessels stiffening, the blood, the heart shrinking a little bit. And so we're not getting as much up there, right? And so we need that blood flow into the brain. So important. But again, those are just normal changes, right? We're used to that. We know that it's just part of it. So when we talk about, starting to forget things, or, it taking a little bit longer to remember, we start to worry about dementia. Yes. And certainly dementia is something we hear about a lot. The Alzheimer's Association does some really great work around research around understanding when it is dementia versus just a normal sign of aging. And we're finding out through the Alzheimer's Association and other research that there are things that are higher risk factors for dementia, especially if it's in your genome. And so things like that physical activity, like we're talking about, education, environmental and lifestyle factors, cardiovascular health, like we've already mentioned, diet, social engagement, so important, and sleep. Haven't mentioned that yet, but holy cow, sleep is important for the brain, for our ability to function the next day. So we're finding that there are a lot of modifiable factors that we have control of. There are things that we can't control, right? I can't control the fact that I'm a year older than I was last year, but there are things along the way that I can control. And so that's why we're here and why we're talking today. So the Alzheimer's Association suggests some things to help with that brain health maintenance. For example, controlling the blood pressure, maintaining a healthy weight, managing diabetes, sleeping well, moving, and remaining smoke-free. Those are areas that they highly recommend to help maintain that brain health. Again, we're finding through their pointers study and other studies that lifestyle changes has an impact, no doubt. And so remember, the brain remains highly adaptable as we continue to age. That neuroplasticity is the term, which means that we can form new connections in our brain well into later life. Those new connections, those help us with our memory, help us to do new things. And it's so important to keep using our brain too, not just our muscles in our arms and legs, but our brain as well. So I want to encourage you, right? It's never too late to try new things. I love to tell others about a colleague of mine. We used to work together and we still stay in touch. Her name is Joan. And Joan is, I'm going to guess, in her late 60s. She is taking Japanese. Yes, Japanese. Why? Well, because her son moved to Japan. He is teaching English as a second language there, and he has met a girl. And so Joan is thinking that she's going to have grandchildren one day that speak Japanese or who speak Japanese. And so she wants to be able to communicate with them. And just because she's in her late 60s doesn't mean that she can't learn a new language. And so Joan has been taking Japanese for the last year and a half so that she is ready to go. And when she visits her son in Japan, now she's starting to understand the language more. She's able to appreciate the culture more. So that's pretty darn cool. And so there are lots of things that you can try, and I encourage you to do so. Just because we've not done it before, or it might require some new skills, or we don't know somebody in that class, doesn't mean we can't try it. And I want to encourage you to try new things. Try new things. So, so important for us. Variety matters too, yeah? And I'm not saying that you have to stop doing your crossword puzzle or your Sudoku that you love to do every morning or every afternoon. Heck yeah, keep going with it. But are there other things that you can do too? Maybe there's a group that you can hang out with or meet up with. Maybe they play mahjong, or maybe they do walks in the park and they talk about different things. And so finding some variety, right? Variety is the spice of life. And so what can we do differently? What can we add on? What can we try just for the heck of it? My mom reached out to me a while back and said, hey, I think I might want to try Tai Chi. Like, what do you know about it? I said, well, it doesn't matter what I know about it. You want to try it? Go for it. I love that you want to do it. And I want to hear about it. What do you think? And so she did, she tried it. She found an instructor that she liked. And so she dabbles in it every now and then. It's something new, right? A little bit of a different balance and kind of a different pace than she's used to. But she gave it a try, and that continues to be important. When you do try new things, I would encourage you, or if you're considering trying new things even, I can encourage you to take an approach that we call the beginner's mind. It's something that I, learned about when I was teaching yoga and learning to teach yoga better. That beginner's mindset, approaching something with just an openness, right? We don't have to look, we're at an age now that we're not going to compete in the Olympics, most likely. right? We may not get a Nobel Peace Prize for it. We're not going to cure anything necessarily. It's okay, right? Nothing's lost in that. So just coming with curiosity and with an openness of, I wonder what this can bring for me. Okay. So just always approaching things with that beginner's mind, that curiosity and openness to whatever may happen. You might meet somebody new. You might learn something different. You might learn something different about your body that your body really enjoys or that it doesn't enjoy. And that's important. So how do we fuel this lifestyle that we want? Well, again, as with the physical body and the brain, our digestion is changing too. Our motility, our digestive motility slows, and so food moves through the body a little bit more slowly, which can contribute to constipation. Our stomach acid production decreases as well. And when that happens, we may not be pulling in or certain nutrients as much as we used to, things like B12 or calcium or iron. So knowing that, understanding that, right? When we know those things, then we can start to do things about it. The gut microbiome, it becomes a little bit less diverse with age as well. And we love diversity in the gut because if there's lots of different bacteria in the gut, that means that it's doing great things. It's breaking down foods and such. When it doesn't happen as well, it actually affects not just our digestion, but our immunity as well. As mentioned early on in this presentation, our sense of thirst diminishes, so dehydration can become a little more common and a little harder to detect. And just as a result of hormonal changes, that reduced activity, maybe, hopefully not, medications, slower gastric emptying, because of those things, our appetite tends to decrease. And so, okay, so it does. Well, that's important to know because then what that means is that we need to start eating brilliantly. And what does that look like for us? Well, remember, I've talked about how the body is just changing naturally. And so, for example, if we are to maintain our muscle, we want to aim for protein intake of about 1.2 to 1.6 per kilogram of body weight. And that again is maintenance, which we may not want. We actually may want to increase. So I would even suggest that 1.6 is the minimum. Yeah. I'm not great with that grams and kilograms of body weight, right? We're an ounces and pounds kind of group. And so just for an example, if you weigh 175 pounds, you want in that 1.6 range there, we're looking for about 127 grams of protein, which is about 4.5 ounces. So that's what we're looking for each day. So we need that protein. Protein is so important for our muscle maintenance, for our healing, right? We want lots of protein when we're healing from things, procedures, etc. Very, very, very important is that protein. Staying in that on that left side, fiber, also very important if if our body is changing, which contributes to constipation, fiber is going to help with that. Fiber also, we're learning, is great for the gut. And because of that brain-gut connection, what's good for the gut is good for the brain. So fiber is super important as well. We want fewer refined carbohydrates, that processed stuff. Try to stay away from it if we can. We want more steady blood sugar friendly carbs, things that are more natural, a baked potato, a baked sweet potato, those kinds of carbs. Even raisins are carbs, right? So that's a nice, easy way to get a fruit and a carb, but a better use of both. But down at the bottom, more essential vitamins and minerals, also anti-inflammatory foods. Of course, inflammation contributes to so many things, chronic syndromes, and so we want to keep the anti-inflammatory foods way up high on our priority list, things like tea and coffee. dark yellow veggies, leafy greens, a protein that's also anti-inflammatory and gives you some great vitamins, like it would be salmon. A piece of salmon is great. It gives you that so many great uh, gosh. One example that gives you protein and those vitamins is salmon. It gives you a lot of solid, good quality protein. It's also anti-inflammatory and provides some really great aminos that are helpful for our bodies. Going on to the right side of the screen, nutrient-rich additions, things like, things like your snacks, right? What are you having for a snack? Was it a little Snickers bar? I know it was the smaller size, but really, maybe we look at something different. Maybe we look at nuts, or maybe we look, like I said, at that box of raisins. Those are some great options for us. Even a little bit of red wine, not so bad. A little bit of beer, yeah, that's okay. It's anti-inflammatory, actually. And then finally, fat quality. Our brain is made of fat, and we need fat to live. We need it to stay warm. We need it in so many ways. And so we want to maintain some fat in our diet. And so again, if we're eating less, what kind of quality fat are we eating? Things like olive oil, nuts, fatty fish. Those are important. So just practically speaking, so what do we do? How do we approach each day? We want to build our meals around protein. We want to fill our plate with veggies. We want to, if we're looking for some carbs and that fiber, looking for things like whole grains, the long-term energy carbs. We want to choose nutrient-rich snacks, things like yogurt. Oh, love yogurt, nuts, fruit, things of that sort. And of course, we want to stay hydrated all day. Grabbing a glass of water the first thing you wake up in the morning before your morning coffee or tea is a great way to start, and continuing to drink that water throughout the day. It actually also helps with our maintenance of weight and so many other great things. Another practical example is eating the rainbow. Colorful fruits and vegetables not only look nicer on your plate, but they're providing all these different benefits for you. So for example, the bottom, right? The blueberries, the grapes, those dark colors, so great for the brain. Other colors, great for digestion, great for our mental health, great for our circulation. And so eating those different colors not only looks good, but it's providing even bigger bang for your buck. So think about having at least 3 colors on your plate at every meal. Other quick keys to creating that amazing body, that continuing to create your amazing body that you have. Certainly the importance of social connections, can't say enough about that. We learned most definitely during COVID that isolation is not a good thing. Strong relationships have been shown to be linked with lower rates of cognitive decline, reduced depression, longer, healthier lives. So we want to maintain those social connections. And that's where, maybe trying something new or getting out and, signing up for something that you haven't done before, whether it's at a club or at a township, park district, all sorts of spaces. But creating those social connections is so, so important, right? Friendship is so great to have. Sleep, also very important. They say, shooting for that 7 to 8 hours per night. Naps can be good too if they don't interrupt or disrupt your nightly rest. Why is sleep important? Well, it's the opportunity for our brain to clear out and process what has happened that day. And so, when we're not getting sleep, our body can't clear out, process, and reset for the next day. And so, so that's why sleep is so important. It also gives our body a chance to rest and recover as well. So sleep is really, really important. We could go into sleep for a long time, of course. Maybe there's a ritual that you have, whether it's starting a process when it's about a half hour before bedtime, whether it's a nice tea, putting on some music, reading, skipping the screens, that kind of thing. So, think about that and your quality of sleep, and maybe a couple things that you can tweak to make it a little bit better for you. Always remember, wellness is not a linear path. It never has been, it never will be. All right. And so it just is, it does one of these things, and things happen, and things outside of our control happen. And so we do what we can along the way. Certainly life does throw some curveballs. But that's not to say that we can't maintain a priority of keeping ourselves well to the best of our ability. And so just, giving ourselves grace along the way too. So to set yourself up for success, I just a few tips here. Want to mention, like I said, just giving yourself permission to extend some care and empathy inward. Meet yourself where you are. It's hard to get to the next step if we don't acknowledge where we are at this point in time. And so, it's wherever you are is exactly where you are, and it's where you need to be at this moment. And so where do you want to go? Where do you want to be? What do you want to be able to do? Are there grandkids coming and you want to be able to get up and down? I joke that I put the Tupperware, I make my husband put the Tupperware away when we do the dishes or empty the dishwasher. Why? Because it makes him get down on his knees and put it underneath. And he grunts a little bit and gives me a bit of a look. But I remind him that if he's going to be getting up and down with his grandchildren someday, he's going to need to continue getting up and down. And so this is just practice for that. Anyhow, avoid all or nothing thinking, right? It's not all or nothing. It can be little bites. I like to say they're chewable bites. What is something chewable that I can do today that will help my health for tomorrow? 1%. That's all we're looking for. Take a page from colleagues. If there are things that are working for your friends, maybe it'll work for you. That's not to say it has to, but certainly, give it a try. Listen to what they like, and use it as an example or something to try yourself, even if it's a portion. Speaking of portions, prioritize the small and steady. Again, you don't have to go way big and have these massive goals. Think about 5 minutes. What can you do 5 minutes today that you didn't do yesterday? Why? Because it was more than you did yesterday, and that counts. Find an accountability partner if you need to, a buddy, somebody who can say, hey, did you get this done? Or, hey, did you go for a walk today? Hey, did you, get those veggies in like you've been wanting to? That's always nice to have an accountability partner. And always celebrate and savor those successes. If you were able to do something, that push-up that you've not been able to do in so many years, celebrate that. Give yourself a pat on the back. That's good. And when we celebrate those successes and when we feel like we're accomplishing something, we are automatically encouraged to continue going on. Certainly, absolutely make your own rules. You're going to hear all kinds of rules you always have, right? Of what should you do? But at this point, make your own. What can you do to support your own health and happiness? Keep things consistent, convenient, manageable, reliable. When it's convenient and consistent, man, it makes it so much easier to happen, right? How can you hold yourself accountable? How can you keep yourself from feeling like you're not doing or you're not as good as something else? Don't worry about the others, just worry about yourself. You're only worrying about yourself. So Sophia Loren, right? Ah, she's so beautiful. There is a fountain of youth, she says. It is your mind, your talents, your creativity that you bring to your life and the lives of the people that you love. When you learn to tap this source, you will have truly defeated age.